fellow travelers, friends dreaming of retiring in Thailand. Imagine this. You're 50 years old. You've worked hard all your life, long hours at the office, broken relationships, and the quiet ache of loneliness that no amount of money could cure. You finally make the leap. Thailand. The land of warm smiles, glittering beaches, cheap living, and second chances. You tell yourself, this is it. My fresh start. But then, one morning, you wake up in a small rented condo on the edge of Bangkok. The ceiling fan spins lazily above you. The smell of last night's whiskey still lingers in the air. You roll over, and there she is. A young Thai woman, no more than 25, sleeping peacefully beside you. For a moment, your heart beats with that dangerous cocktail of excitement and fear. Her name is Pattaya. She's beautiful, delicate, and her voice carries that soft lilt that makes you feel wanted in a way you haven't felt in years. She tells you, with tears in her eyes, that last night meant everything to her. That you're the man she's been waiting for. And then, she drops the bomb. She's pregnant. What do? Don't skip, don't click away. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and stay with me until the very end. Because if you're ever thinking about moving to Thailand, or if you're already here chasing love and new beginnings, Jack's tragedy might be the most important lesson you'll ever learn. This is the story of a man who came searching for peace, but instead walked straight into a carefully crafted lie. A bar girl disguised as a good girl. And it all began with a single night. But before we dive into the chaos of that night, let's step back. Who was Jack before Thailand? And why was he so vulnerable to a trap that so many expats still fall into today? Before Thailand, there was just Jack. Jack was 50 years old when this story began. A man who, by most standards, had done everything right. He spent nearly 3 decades working in corporate finance in the UK. He wore the sharp suits, gave the confident presentations, and carried the weight of other people's money on his shoulders. And for a while, he convinced himself that this was enough, that success could fill the hollow places inside him. But here's the thing. Money doesn't hug you when you come home at night. Spreadsheets don't ask how your day was. And the corner office doesn't chase away the echo of loneliness. Jack had been married once. 15 years of partnership that dissolved into silence. His wife, tired of being second place to his career, eventually left. No children. No family ties strong enough to anchor him. What he had was his work, and then, eventually, the realization that work had drained him dry. By his late 40s, Jack began to look around at his peers. Some were welcoming grandchildren into their lives. Others were booking holidays with their wives. Jack, meanwhile, was eating reheated dinners alone, scrolling through travel forums, wondering when his real life would begin. And that's where the dream of Thailand started to whisper. Thailand, in Jack's mind, was the antidote to everything he'd been missing. Sunshine instead of gray skies. Smiles instead of indifference. Adventure instead of routine. He read stories online about expats who retired there on half their UK salary and lived like kings. He saw photos of golden temples in Chiang Mai, turquoise waters in Phuket, neon-soaked streets in Bangkok. And more than that, he saw possibilities. Possibilities of starting over. When he talked to friends about Thailand, they raised eyebrows. Some teased him, "You're just chasing young girls, aren't you?" Others warned him, "Be careful, mate. Thailand isn't all beaches and massages." But Jack brushed it off. He wasn't some reckless tourist looking for a weekend fling. He was a man searching for peace, companionship, and maybe, just maybe, a second chance at love. Inside, though, there was something else. A quiet ache. The kind of loneliness that creeps in when you've spent too many birthdays blowing out candles alone. That voice in the back of his mind whispering, "Is this all there is?" When an old colleague suggested a business venture in Bangkok, a way to combine work with exploration, Jack took it as a sign. This wasn't running away, he told himself. This was a strategic move, a chance to work, to explore Asia, and to set the foundation for retirement in paradise. He wrapped up his life in the UK with startling efficiency. Sold his flat in London. Packed 2 suitcases. Transferred savings into international accounts. And just like that, Jack was free, or so he thought. Friends, this is where I need you to lean in. Because men like Jack don't fall into scams because they're stupid. They fall because they're human. Because when you're alone for too long, when you've been starved of love, trust, and intimacy, the smallest spark feels like fire. And fire is dangerous when you've been freezing in the dark. Jack wasn't coming to Thailand as a fool. He was coming as a man desperate for something more. And that desperation, though he couldn't see it, was already painting a target on his back. And when he finally stepped off the plane at Suvarnabhumi Airport, breathing in that heavy tropical air, hearing the calls of tuk-tuk drivers and smelling grilled street food on the humid breeze, Jack thought he was stepping into freedom. He had no idea he was stepping straight into the jaws of a trap. When Jack's flight touched down in Bangkok, the very first thing he noticed was the heat. Thick, heavy, almost alive. It wrapped around him like a second skin as he stepped out of the airport. The city roared to life instantly, taxis honking, tuk-tuks buzzing, the smell of grilled chicken skewers mixing with car exhaust. For Jack, it was overwhelming, chaotic, but exhilarating. This was not London. This was not the quiet, grey suburbs. This was color, sound, and life on full display. His first days in Thailand were intoxicating. The streets of Sukhumvit were alive with neon signs and music spilling out from bars. Markets stretched endlessly, offering everything from silk scarves to steaming bowls of noodles. Street vendors smiled and called out to him with broken English, and every corner seemed like an adventure waiting to happen. In those early weeks, Jack found himself swept up in what every new expat experiences, the honeymoon phase. He tried pad kra pao with extra chili, and his eyes watered as the vendor laughed and handed him a Coke. He wandered through temples, staring up at golden Buddhas that seemed to glow in the morning light. He even took a weekend trip to Chiang Mai, where the air was cooler, the streets quieter, and the mountains rose like green guardians around the old city. It felt like everything he'd been searching for: peace, beauty, a chance to finally breathe. And yet, even in those first blissful moments, there were shadows he didn't notice. The expat bars in Bangkok were filled with men just like him, older, weary, with drinks in hand and young Thai women by their side. Some looked happy. Others looked hollow, like men who had gambled away more than just their money. Jack would glance at them and think, "That won't be me. I'm different." He heard the whispers too. Stories traded by long-term expats over beers, scams, broken marriages, men who lost everything. But in his excitement, Jack treated them as cautionary tales for fools, not warnings meant for him. Because how could paradise hold such danger? Jack spent his first month moving between business meetings and exploration. By day, he was a professional, suit-pressed, laptop open in co-working spaces filled with digital nomads. By night, he was a dreamer, walking through night markets, watching lanterns float into the sky, feeling like his new life was finally beginning. And the truth is, Thailand does have that effect. It can make a man feel 20 years younger. It can make loneliness melt away in the glow of street lights and the warmth of easy smiles. But friends, let me tell you this, Thailand is also a place of contrasts. Behind the glittering nightlife of Pattaya beaches, there are debts and desperation. Behind the calm serenity of Chiang Mai temples, there are families struggling to survive. Behind the smiles, sometimes, there are masks. Jack saw only the surface, the golden temples, the white sand beaches, the laughter that made him forget the cold years behind him. What he didn't see were the traps carefully laid out for men like him. Traps dressed up as love, waiting for the right moment to snap shut. And that moment came one night. One ordinary evening, after a business dinner, when Jack followed his colleagues into a bar alive with music and flashing lights. A night that would begin with laughter, and end with a stranger in his bed. Her name was Pattaya. It happened on a humid night in Bangkok. Jack had just finished a long business dinner with his partners. Good food, too many drinks, laughter that lingered in the smoky air of the restaurant. He should have gone back to his serviced condo, logged into his emails, prepared for tomorrow. But instead, his colleagues coaxed him into one last stop. "Come on, Jack," they said. "You can't come to Thailand and not see the nightlife." Reluctantly, Jack followed. The bar was everything you'd imagine. Dim lights, live music echoing off the walls, neon signs casting pink and blue glows across polished faces. Waitresses weaved through the crowd with trays of drinks, and the place buzzed with the energy of strangers trying to forget themselves. Jack wasn't looking for anything. That's what he told himself. He ordered a whiskey, sat back, and let the noise wash over him. And then he saw her. She wasn't like the others. At least, that's how it felt. She sat a few tables away, not dressed in the glittering mini-dresses many of the women wore, but in something softer, a simple floral blouse that made her seem almost innocent. Her long hair fell loosely over her shoulders, and when she laughed at something a friend said, Jack felt it in his chest. For a man starved of intimacy, that laugh was like oxygen. Their eyes met. Just for a moment. But it was enough. Soon she was at his table, introduced by one of his colleagues. "This is Pattaya," they said. "She's just a friend." She smiled shyly, her English careful but melodic, and within minutes, Jack was drawn in. She told him she was 24. That she worked part-time, studied business administration at a local university, and helped her mother back home in Iceland. She said she didn't usually go to bars, that her friends had dragged her along. And she laughed, embarrassed, when Jack teased her about the coincidence. Too perfect. Too eager. Too available. But Jack didn't see that. Or maybe he did, but he didn't want to. Because for the first time in years, a beautiful young woman was looking at him not with indifference, but with admiration. With interest. With warmth. One drink turned into two. Two into three. Conversation flowed as easily as the whiskey. She asked about his life, his work, his dreams. She listened, really listened, like no one had in years. And then came the words that melted him. "You are different. Not like other foreign men. You are kind." It was the kind of line that would sound rehearsed to anyone else. But to Jack, whose heart had been starved for so long, it felt like truth. That night, when he stumbled back to his condo, Pattaya was with him. He told himself it was harmless. Just company. Just one night. But when he woke the next morning and saw her still there, lying in his bed with sunlight painting her face, it felt like destiny. And that's when she whispered the first lie. "Jack, last night, something happened between us. I think maybe I am pregnant." Jack froze. His mind raced. Had it been true? Was she serious? But she said it with such conviction, such trembling sincerity, that he believed her. Or rather, he believed what he wanted to, that maybe this was fate. That maybe life had finally handed him a family, a second chance. It didn't matter that they'd only just met. It didn't matter that the story didn't quite make sense. What mattered was the way she looked at him with those wide, innocent eyes. Jack had spent years searching for meaning. And here, in this tiny condo in Bangkok, a young Thai woman told him he'd found it. Friends, that's how it begins. Not with chains or threats, but with soft words, fragile promises, and the intoxicating dream of love. What Jack couldn't see was that he wasn't the first man Pattaya had said those words to. And he wouldn't be the last. Because once Jack believed in her, once he committed to her, the real game began. After that first night, Jack told himself he should slow down. That he was a guest in this country, and he had responsibilities. But Pattaya made slowing down impossible. She became a constant presence. She texted him in the mornings with messages like, "Good morning, my love. Did you sleep well?" She called him in the evenings just to ask if he'd eaten dinner. And when they met, she clung to his arm like he was the center of her world. For a man who had spent years dining alone, whose phone stayed silent long after work hours, this sudden flood of affection was intoxicating. And Pattaya knew exactly what she was doing. She introduced Jack to her family. An older woman, frail and coughing, who she said was her mother. A younger brother in a cheap t-shirt, who bowed his head politely. They invited Jack into a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city. Plastic chairs, photos on the wall, the faint smell of incense. Everything looked just convincing enough. "Jack," Pattaya whispered as her mother pressed his hand, "you are my hope. Before you, I had nothing. My family had nothing." How could he doubt her when the evidence was right there? She also shared secrets with him. Stories about her father who abandoned them. About working late nights just to pay for school. About how other men only wanted one thing, but she was waiting for someone who would truly love her. Jack felt honored. Trusted. Like he had been chosen. And when she looked up at him, eyes shimmering with tears, and said, "I feel safe with you," You are not just my boyfriend. You are my future. Jack's heart melted. Friends, this is where scams take their strongest root, not in the wallet, but in the heart. Because once a man believes he is unique, once he feels that someone depends on him, money stops feeling like money. It starts feeling like love. Jack began making changes. He stopped meeting his colleagues for after-work drinks, choosing instead to spend his evenings with Pattaya. He skipped video calls with friends back in London because she said, "Why waste time talking to them when you have me here?" Slowly, she became his world. And she sealed that illusion of intimacy with rituals. She would cook him Thai dishes and feed him bites with her chopsticks, giggling when he struggled with the spice. She left her clothes in his condo, so her presence was always there. She even called him by a special name in Thai, T-Rak, meaning my love, a phrase that made him blush every time. Jack wasn't blind. There were moments that didn't add up. Once, he caught her on her phone late at night, whispering in rapid Thai, her face tense. She brushed it off, saying it was her cousin. Another time, she disappeared for an entire day, only to return with excuses about helping her sick mother. But when he asked questions, she didn't get defensive. Instead, she cried. "You don't trust me," she whispered. "I thought you were different. I thought you were my safe place." And like so many men before him, Jack apologized. He told himself he was overthinking. He told himself love required trust. That's how manipulation works, not by force, but by turning suspicion into guilt. Within weeks, Pattaya had woven herself so tightly into Jack's life that he couldn't imagine a day without her. He wasn't just falling in love. He was falling into a carefully crafted net. And soon, once she was sure he was entangled, Pattaya made her first move. Not a big one. Just small enough to seem innocent. The first request for money. It started small. Jack was sitting on his condo balcony one evening, watching the Bangkok skyline glow against the humid night. Pattaya leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, when her phone buzzed. She answered in Thai, her voice trembling, and then hung up quickly. Tears welled up in her eyes. "What's wrong?" Jack asked, concerned. She hesitated, as if she didn't want to burden him. Then finally, she whispered, "It's my mother. She's sick again. She needs medicine. But we don't have enough money." Jack felt a pang in his chest. He'd met her mother. He'd seen the cough, the thin frame. And now here was this young woman, vulnerable, looking at him like he was her only hope. "Don't worry about it," Jack said softly. "How much do you need?" She shook her head, protesting. No, I cannot ask you. You already do so much." But of course, she let him insist. The amount was small. Just a few thousand baht, less than what Jack would spend on a dinner back in London. He handed her the cash the next day, and the way she reacted almost brought him to tears. She threw her arms around him, sobbing into his shirt. "You saved my family. You are my angel." For Jack, it didn't feel like a financial transaction. It felt like love in action. Responsibility. Partnership. And that's the trap. Because once you frame money as proof of love, every request becomes a test. Over the next weeks, similar situations arose. A school fee for her younger brother. A sudden electricity bill that had doubled. An unexpected hospital visit for her aunt. Each time, Pattaya cried. Each time, she resisted, "I don't want to ask, but I have no one else." And each time, Jack stepped in. The amounts were never outrageous. A few hundred here. 1,000 there. Barely a dent in his savings. And with every loan, every gesture of generosity, Jack felt more secure in their relationship. This is what a real couple does, he thought. They take care of each other. And Pattaya reinforced it. She told him constantly, "You are not like the others. Other men just want to use me. But you, Jack, you are my forever." It was music to his ears. Still, there were tiny cracks he ignored. Once, he found a receipt in her purse for a luxury handbag, far more expensive than what he'd given her. When he asked about it, she said her friend had lent it to her. Another time, he noticed she always wanted cash, never transfers. But when he questioned her, she didn't argue. She cried. She made him feel guilty for doubting her. And Jack, desperate to prove himself, always caved. Friends, I need you to hear this clearly. Scams rarely begin with massive theft. They begin with a whisper. With a story that tugs at your heart. With an amount so small, so reasonable, that you feel foolish even questioning it. But each time you say yes, you're not just giving money. You're giving control. Jack thought he was building trust. In reality, Pattaya was building a foundation, a staircase that would soon lead to something far larger, far more devastating. Because once Jack had proven himself willing to help with small emergencies, Pattaya was ready for the next stage. A dream bigger than them both. A business venture. A future they could build together. And that was the beginning of the end. For a while, life with Pattaya settled into a rhythm. Jack worked during the day, attended business meetings, and returned home each night to her warm smile, her laughter, her gentle touches. She cooked for him, cleaned his condo, whispered that she loved him more than anything. He felt alive again. But one evening, while they sat together in a quiet restaurant tucked away in Sukhumvit, Pattaya leaned forward, her expression unusually serious. "Jack," she said softly, "I want to talk about our future." Jack's heart lifted. Finally, a conversation about stability, about building something lasting. He reached for her hand. "I want us to have a life together," she continued. "Not just in this condo. Not just renting. A home. Maybe a small restaurant. My dream is to open one, with you. A place where we can work together, live together, grow together." The words struck him deeply. It wasn't a plea for money, it was a dream. Their dream. She painted vivid pictures, a cozy restaurant in Pattaya near the beach, tourists lining up for authentic Thai dishes, Jack managing the books while she greeted guests with her radiant smile. She even pulled out sketches on a napkin, floor plans she claimed a friend had helped design. It all looked so real, so possible. And when Jack hesitated, Pattaya tilted her head, her voice trembling. "Do you not see us together in the future? Do you not believe in me?" How could he say no? That night, Jack told himself this wasn't about money. It was about love, about building a life. He transferred the first large sum, enough to secure the lease, for the property Pattaya said she had her eye on. Weeks passed. Pattaya brought him documents, contracts written in Thai, stamped with official-looking seals. She explained that as a foreigner, he couldn't legally own land, but the property could be registered in her name until they married. He trusted her. He signed what she placed before him. And soon, more requests followed. Renovation costs. Kitchen equipment. Staff salaries. Always with detailed receipts, always with promises. Each payment framed as an investment in their shared future. "Don't worry, Jack," she'd whisper. "This is ours. Soon, you won't have to work so hard. We'll retire together by the sea." The more money he gave, the deeper he felt committed. He wasn't just helping her anymore. He was a partner. A husband-to-be. A man finally building the life he deserved. But the cracks were widening, even if he didn't see them. Jack noticed Pattaya's lifestyle changing. Her clothes became more expensive. Her nights out with friends became more frequent. She bought herself jewelry, saying it was just to look professional for their restaurant. When he asked to see the property, she always had an excuse. Renovations weren't finished. The landlord wasn't available. She didn't want to spoil the surprise. And Jack, blinded by love, by the intoxicating dream of belonging, chose not to push. Because here's the cruel truth. Once you've invested enough in a dream, you'll do anything to protect it. You'll ignore the whispers of doubt. You'll silence the voice inside that says something isn't right. And that's exactly where Pattaya wanted him. Because soon, the requests wouldn't just be about investments. They would be about lifestyle. About proving his love in ways bigger, louder, and more expensive. Jack thought he was building a future. In reality, he was building his own downfall. The transformation was subtle at first. When Jack met Pattaya, she wore modest clothes, simple blouses, jeans, the occasional sundress. But as months passed and his investments grew, so did her wardrobe. Designer handbags appeared. High heels replaced sandals. Makeup that once looked natural became polished, glamorous. Jack noticed, but he explained it away. She wants to look the part, he told himself. If we're opening a restaurant, appearances matter. But the changes didn't stop at clothes. Pattaya began taking Jack to fancier restaurants, places where the bill for 2 meals equaled a month's rent for a Thai family. She ordered champagne instead of beer, imported steak instead of street food. She called it celebrating their success. And Jack, desperate to keep her happy, always paid. Her social circle shifted too. New friends appeared, stylish young women who carried the same expensive bags and posted photos of cocktails on Instagram. When Jack asked who they were, Pattaya laughed and said, "Just girls from university." But deep down, he wondered. The trips followed. A weekend in Phuket. A week in Koh Samui. Lavish hotels, beachside villas, private speedboat rides. Each time, Pattaya gushed, "This is the life we deserve. Thank you, Jack. You make my dreams come true." And with every word, Jack felt validated. Needed. Loved. But friends, here's the cruel truth about manipulation. It doesn't just take your money, it rewires your sense of reality. Jack began to believe that this was normal. That spending thousands on vacations and clothes wasn't extravagance, it was love. That every swipe of his card was proof he was the man she believed him to be. And then came the moment Pattaya pushed him further. One night, as they sat on a balcony overlooking the ocean in Pattaya City, she curled into his arms and whispered, "Marry me, Jack. Make me yours forever." The words hit him like a lightning bolt. Marriage. A commitment deeper than money, deeper than promises. Jack's chest swelled with emotion. After years of loneliness, here was a woman, young, beautiful, devoted, asking to spend her life with him. But she didn't stop there. "My family will finally be proud," she said. "We can show everyone you are serious. We can even have a ceremony. Just something small. Please." Jack hesitated, but she pressed harder. "If you love me, you will do this. Otherwise, maybe you don't see me as your future." And there it was, the ultimate test. Love or doubt. Devotion or betrayal. Jack chose love. The ceremony wasn't legal, but Jack didn't know, or didn't care. It was a commitment ceremony at a local hall, complete with flowers, food, and dozens of Pattaya's relatives. Jack paid for it all. He smiled in photos, slipped a gold ring on her finger, and believed he had finally found belonging. Meanwhile, his colleagues back in Bangkok noticed his absence. Friends from London complained he never answered their calls. One even warned him, "Be careful, mate. I've heard stories." But Jack didn't want to hear it. Because when you're drowning in affection, when you're told you're someone's forever, the voices of reason sound like enemies. And that's what Pattaya wanted, Jack isolated, cut off, fully dependent on her approval. But cracks were beginning to show. Her stories weren't always consistent. Her warmth sometimes turned to coldness. And Jack, for the first time, began to wonder if love was really what he'd bought into, or if it was something far darker. For months, Jack lived inside a dream. A dream built on laughter, intimacy, and the promise of forever. But every dream eventually flickers. And when it flickers, shadows creep in. The first crack appeared one afternoon when Jack returned home earlier than usual. Pattaya wasn't expecting him. He stepped into the condo, briefcase in hand, and found her on the balcony, speaking hurriedly in Thai on her phone. When she noticed him, she froze. Her tone changed instantly, switching to playful sweetness. "Oh, just my cousin," she said with a quick laugh. She needed help. But Jack noticed the way she gripped the phone tightly. The way her smile didn't reach her eyes. He let it slide. Another time, while rummaging for a receipt in her handbag, Jack stumbled across something unexpected. A business card for a jewelry shop in Pattaya, with a handwritten note and phone number on the back. When he asked about it, she snatched the card quickly. "It's for a friend," she snapped. Then, softer, she added, "Why don't you trust me? Do you think I lie to you?" Tears filled her eyes, and Jack's guilt drowned his doubts. He apologized. Again. But the cracks kept spreading. Pattaya's affection grew, inconsistent. Some nights, she smothered him with kisses, calling him her tea rack, whispering that he was the only man she would ever love. Other nights, she turned cold and distant, scrolling endlessly on her phone, barely looking at him. When Jack asked what was wrong, her answers were vague. "I'm just tired. It's my family. You don't understand me." And Jack, terrified of losing her, accepted every excuse. Friends began to notice too. A colleague pulled him aside after a business meeting and said, "Jack, I've seen this before. Be careful. She's spending your money faster than you're making it." Jack bristled. Defensive. "You don't know her," he replied. "She's different." Because that's what denial does. It blinds you, not with ignorance, but with hope. Jack wasn't stupid. Deep down, he knew something was wrong. But admitting it would mean admitting he'd been fooled. Admitting that the future he'd invested in, the restaurant, the marriage, the family, was a lie. And that was too painful to face. So instead, he doubled down. He told himself love required patience. That all relationships had ups and downs. That Pattaya's mood swings and secrets were just part of being with someone younger, from a different culture. But late at night, lying awake beside her, he felt the unease in his chest. The questions he didn't dare voice. Why did she need so much cash? Why were her emergencies never-ending? Why did she disappear for hours without explanation? And most damning of all, why did the love that once felt like salvation now feel like a leash? Jack's doubts were growing. But before he could find the courage to confront the truth came crashing down on him. Harder, colder, and crueler than he could have ever imagined. Because soon, the mask would shatter. It happened on a Sunday morning. Jack was sitting at the small wooden table in his condo, sipping instant coffee, when his phone buzzed. A message notification lit up the screen. It wasn't in English. It was in Thai. Curious, Jack tapped it open. At first, the words meant nothing to him. But the name at the top froze his blood. It wasn't his. It was another man's. A name he didn't recognize. And the message, though written in Thai, contained one word he couldn't ignore: baby. His hands shaking, Jack copied the message into Google Translate. And what appeared on the screen shattered him. "Don't worry, babe. He believes everything. I'll get the money soon. We'll be free." The cup slipped from his hand, coffee spilling across the table. His world tilted. The condo walls seemed to close in. He read the message again. And again. Hoping, praying it was wrong. But there was no mistake. Pattaya wasn't writing to him. She was writing about him. Jack's chest tightened. His breath caught. Everything, the money, the promises, the marriage ceremony, the dreams of a restaurant, cracked open like glass. When Pattaya returned later that day, smiling and carrying takeaway bags of his favorite dishes, Jack could barely breathe. He set the phone on the table. "What is this?" His voice shook, raw with rage and disbelief. She glanced at the screen. And in that instant, her expression changed. Not shock. Not guilt. Just calculation. Her smile slipped away, replaced by something cold. "You weren't supposed to see that," she muttered. Jack's heart broke in that moment. He had expected tears, apologies, explanations. Instead, what he got was indifference. A mask slipping off. He demanded answers, but Pattaya only shrugged. "You foreigners, you come here, thinking you can buy love. You can't. I did what I had to do." Her words cut deeper than knives. He shouted. He begged. He reminded her of the money, the dreams, the promises. She rolled her eyes. "That was never your money anymore. It was mine." And then, just like that, she left. She walked out the door with her handbag over her shoulder, never looking back. The silence she left behind was unbearable. Jack sank into the chair, staring at the half-eaten food she'd brought. His stomach churned. His hands trembled. He opened his banking app. His worst fear was confirmed. The accounts he had been transferring money into were empty. Drained. Years of savings, gone. In that moment, Jack wasn't just broke. He was broken. The condo that once felt like a home was suddenly a cage. The city that once felt alive was now suffocating. He looked out at the Bangkok skyline, neon lights flickering in the distance, and felt nothing but despair. Friends, this is the brutal heart of it. Jack's expat dream of retiring in paradise ended in hell. The woman he thought was his savior was nothing more than a predator. A bar girl disguised as a good girl. A fake love that destroyed a life. But the story doesn't end there. Because after betrayal comes the hardest part, surviving the aftermath. And that's where Jack's real struggle began. Friends, that was Jack's story. A story that began with hope and ended in devastation. A story of an expat dream that promised paradise, white sand beaches, warm smiles, the promise of love, but instead collapsed into betrayal, humiliation, and loss. But understand this, Jack's story is not just Jack's. It is the story of countless men who arrive in Thailand carrying suitcases full of dreams, and leave with nothing but broken hearts and empty wallets. Men who thought they were too smart, too careful, too experienced to be fooled. Men who believed that wisdom and age would protect them from deception. The truth. These scams don't prey on stupidity. They prey on something far more universal, far more human, loneliness. They prey on the ache of wanting to be touched, to be needed, to be loved. They prey on hope, that fragile belief that maybe, after years of disappointment, happiness might finally be waiting around the corner. Jack lost everything. His savings, carefully built over 30 years. His dignity, stripped away by a woman who never loved him. His trust, in himself, in love, in the very country he thought would give him peace. But if his story carries any meaning, it is this, to warn you. To stop you from walking blindly down the same path. So here are the lessons burned into Jack's scars. Red flags you must never ignore. Too perfect, too fast. If she says you're her soulmate within weeks, if she calls you forever before she even knows who you are, stop. Real love takes time. Constant emergencies. When every month brings a new crisis, a sick mother, a sudden bill, a desperate plea, and somehow you're always the solution, you are being tested. Cash only. If she insists on cash, avoids banks, and gets angry when you hesitate, that's not love, that's control. Isolation. If she pushes you to cut ties with friends, mocks anyone who questions her, or makes you feel guilty for doubting her, she's building a cage around you. Lifestyle inflation. If her tastes change overnight, expensive handbags, luxury hotels, lavish dinners, all on your dime, ask yourself who she's really trying to impress. Inconsistent stories. If her past changes depending on the day, if excuses pile up, if moods swing when you question her, these are cracks in the mask. Friends, if you see these signs, stop. Breathe. Step back. Don't let affection blind you to reality. Don't let your longing for love become the noose around your neck. Because here's the truth. Real love doesn't drain your bank account. Real love doesn't manipulate you into debt. Real love doesn't vanish the moment the money runs dry. Thailand is beautiful. Its temples glow with gold, its beaches stretch like postcards come alive, its people can be warm and genuine. But within this beauty, there are traps. Behind smiles, sometimes there are masks. And one mistake, one blind leap of trust, can cost you everything you worked for, your savings, your pride, even your will to trust again. Jack's story is painful, but it's also proof. Proof that if you've already been scammed, you are not alone. Men from London to New York, from Sydney to Berlin, have walked the same path. The shame is not yours. The shame belongs to the predator who used your humanity as a weapon. If you're planning to move to Thailand, or if you're already here, carry this lesson with you like armor. Protect your heart, protect your wallet, and never confuse manipulation for love. Friends, that was Jack's story, a true expat tale of romance, betrayal, and survival. If his story struck a chord, don't let it end here. Share this video with someone you know who's dreaming of moving to Thailand, or someone who's already here searching for love. You might just save them from heartbreak that could destroy their life. Before you leave, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell. Because the stories I share are not just entertainment, they're warnings, lifelines, survival guides for those who think paradise is safe. Sometimes, the most valuable gift you can give another man is not money, not advice, but the truth. And that truth is this: paradise can turn to hell if you ignore the red flags.